Hi, I'm Drake Copeland. I'm the tech service rep here in Ohio, and today I'm actually in Urbana, Ohio, next to a soybean field where we put out a fungicide strip trial. And the goal here was pretty simple. We're just trying to show the grower the value of fungicide in soybeans. Particularly in this area, like most soybean producing areas in the country, our biggest disease is frog eye leaf spot. What I'll tell you today in the non-treated strip, there is light to moderate pressure, but we still have a long ways to go in terms of pod fill to get to the end of the year. So having the fungicide out there now is going to pay off in the end when we run the combine through these treatments. But the main reason for this video is I was seeing some other things going on in the soybeans that may be going on in your own. All right guys, so first things first, we'll go ahead and talk about frog eye leaf spot. I'm in the non-treated portion of the field. You know, I came here a month ago and there was just pressure in the middle part of the canopy, which reminded me that frog eye actually prefers to be on the fresh new foliage. So you're gonna find it as it progresses at the top of the soybean plant. It's pretty easy to identify. It's a sort of a white tannish lesion surrounded by a brown or purplish halo, but you can get an idea of what kind of pressure we're seeing here. It is not this consistent throughout the non-treated check, but I'd be willing to bet if the conditions are right, we could see this progress and absolutely see a yield loss at the end of the year in the non-treated check. All right, so the next thing I'm seeing is aborted pods. And you know, soybeans are really efficient plants. I'm sure you've got some stories of your own where you messed up on soybeans and they actually overcompensated to where you did not see a yield loss. But I was told one time that soybean plants put on more flowers than they'll ever need and more pods than they'll ever fill. And a lot of this depends on the environment. You know, you could get a drought at the wrong time or too much rain or not enough rain for the photosynthate to be powerful enough or have as much to fill the pod. So what I've got here, you've got pods that are filling here, but you've also got one that is being aborted. So these will actually fill and produce grain, whereas the one that looks like it was aborted pretty early on will not fill grain to be harvested. And there's other pests that could probably do this. I think stink bugs can make pods be aborted, but we haven't seen any stink bugs, but there is definitely some defoliation going on. And looks like we have some bean leaf beetle. When I was walking in, I saw a lot of grasshoppers, but we're gonna go ahead and do some sweeps and show you what we find. All right, so I've got my sweep net, and I guess before I get started, I should say the biggest insect pest, or one of the biggest insect pests we chase in soybeans are stink bugs. Oftentimes they come in later in the year and they can feed on pods and cause either a yield quality problem or a yield loss. So we're gonna do some sweeps. For the sake of time, I'm just gonna do 25 sweeps, about 8 rows that way, and we'll show what we find. All right, so I did my 25 sweeps. Let's see what we got. Grasshopper. So here's one that I want to talk about, and I saw a bunch of spherical feeding on the leaves, and generally not a huge problem, but this is a bean leaf beetle, and there's about, I don't know, 15 or 20 in here, but they're defoliators. They can feed a little bit on the pods and cause some discoloration of those, but at the pressure that I've seen, we're not exactly at 20% defoliation, and there's just not enough in here to treat. Now, this guy that is walking up here is a problem. This is actually a nymph of a stink bug, and the threshold here in Ohio is actually 4 or more stink bugs. It doesn't matter if they're nymphs or adults. You got to treat, and that's because they will feed on the pods and cause either a yield quality issue or a yield loss. Here's another one. So like I said, I only did one sweep. In a normal situation, I would probably do, in this field, it's about 100 acres, I'd probably do 6 more rounds of 25 and then get my average. But judging by that one sweep, we may not be too far off of the threshold to treat for stink bugs in soybeans. It's definitely not a pest that you want to miss out on. All right, so just a quick recap of what we saw. Obviously, the main reason I'm here is for frog eye leaf spot. So we'll talk about fungicide timing. All our fungicides were put out at R3. That is because there's been years of university data, FMC data, and other chemical manufacturer data that steer towards that conclusion that R3 is the best time to put out a fungicide and get a high return on investment. Now, in terms of frog eye leaf spot control, we have a product called Lucento, which is a premix of flutriafol and bixafen. And what these two active ingredients do, they're both two different modes of action. So we've got a triazole chemistry as well as an SDHI chemistry working together on that pathogen. And what you'll see out here and in other farms, maybe in your own part of the world, is really good activity on that pathogen. And what we'll do with that application is protect that optimal yield this soybean crop can produce. And you'll see that yield protection when you put the combine through the plots this fall, especially in this scenario. Another thing to point out is the stink bugs that I found. The threshold here in Ohio is 4 or more. I found a couple nymphs in the first sweep, so I went ahead and did a few more sweeps, and I was only averaging about 2.5 to 3. So really not enough to warrant an application yet, but if we do get there, we do have a solution at FMC for that problem as well. We have a insecticide called Hero, which is a premix of 2 pyrethroids that give you not only the knockdown that you need to control those pests, but also we have a biphenyl pyrethroid in that premix. And what that does is gives you a longer residual activity on that pest. Now, depending on the weather and environment, that will determine how long that insecticide will work for you. But the way I look at it is it's better to have something working for you after you leave the field than not. So if you have any other questions about late pest or disease management in soybeans, feel free to check out FMC's website or contact any of your local FMC star retailers. Thank you for watching.